chances have helped the widespread drought conditions across Alabama.
Plus, how the drought is affecting Christmas trees that were planted earlier this year.
And it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a hole in a cloud. We explain the science behind this atmospheric phenomenon.
WBRC Fox 6 News. First Alert Weather Extra starts now.
Welcome into Weather Extra. Lauren, Tania, I know you guys have been talking a lot as well about that chance for some wet weather coming back tonight. And one of those nights, we might have some overnight rumbles.
Yeah, lightning, thunder.
Yeah, you know, it's been a while since we've heard some thunder at night.
Right.
Hard to believe you see the Christmas tree in the studio. It's like, why are we talking about thunderstorms? Well, we've been talking all week about that secondary severe season. Hopefully that threat turns out to be rather low for us.
Yeah, and it looks like the main area we're going to have to watch. And typically when you get into December, I remember several Christmas holidays. We were right here covering severe weather events, and there were tornadoes in places like Mobile. You get down in the coast, that's an area where you really have to watch it this time of the year. And I mentioned earlier, if you are going to be traveling south, you may run into some of that stormy weather this weekend. We'll show you more, though. The next big thing for us, what is on the way. And what you're looking at here is we're breaking it down here on Weather Extra. You're seeing some of the wind pattern forecast, but what we're seeing is an orientation in the upper level winds more out of the southwest, and what that is going to do is usher in some of that moisture, help to lift that moisture in from the south. So we got wave number one of wet weather that's going to come in here later on tonight and into the day Friday tomorrow, and then we might catch some afternoon breaks. But what happens is tomorrow night, here it comes again. You see that next disturbance that's going to move through, and that's when that warmer sector, some of that more unstable air could actually lift into South Alabama, and that would be kind of the peak time frame for the risk of strong to severe storms. Now, I even think for us, out ahead of this warm front, typically with a setup like this, you can get elevated storms. And this is what I talked about last night. Yeah, it's going to be a cold night. Temperatures in the 40s, 50s. We don't have to worry about tornadoes or anything like that. But totally would not surprise me if early morning you check in with Matt and Mickey. We had a strong storm out there with some locally heavy rainfall, maybe produce some small hail, some intense lightning. But as we look at the threat for tornadoes, that threat is going to stay south of us. And the time frame to really watch it is going to be late tomorrow night and into Saturday. And it's a low risk, but you can see those ingredients are there. This is one of the products that we have here in the First Alert Weather Center, showing that combination of wind shear and instability. And it actually looks more favorable even the closer you get there to the coast, but certainly down into Baldwin County. We'll need to be weather alert there later on tomorrow for that risk of maybe a brief tornado happening in that particular setup. But right now, no rain at the moment, but it's coming. You can already see some of that green there showing up. The new data, this is the latest model data that we're getting, these hourly updates, still shows this is kind of battling it out with the dry air at the moment, but sooner or later this rain is going to win out later on tonight, and you can see those showers start to lift in. And then after midnight, while we're trying to rest in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock, this could be one of those mornings where we have some loud rumbles of thunder waking us up there as this moves on through. And it looks like a good chance of rain out the door tomorrow morning, so plan for some wet roads and certainly factor in some extra drive time as all that wet weather lifts from south to north across our area. But it is nice that we are going to have some wet weather making its way across Alabama overnight and into tomorrow morning. And even though that chance is there for significant rainfall, we're still dealing with a drought. Meteorologist Matt Daniel and Mickey Ferguson join us now with the latest drought monitor.
Well, we are finishing out the month of November.
Here we go. Let's take a look at those rainfall tallies.
Not much rain, but a little bit.
Well, we're in a drought for a reason. You know, October was really moisture starved, and comes out November was pretty dry in some locations. We saw an inch of rain in Birmingham and Anniston, but that's a far cry from where we typically are in November.
Yeah, and Tuscaloosa picked up 2 inches, but need another 2, 3 just to get close to average for the month of November. So here we go. We're looking at the overall rainfall. Start to see it that climatology says we should see more rain as we go into the winter months. For December, we get closer to 5 inches normally for rain across the area.
And we are starting to see a weather pattern where we're at least getting a decent amount of rain at some point during the week. And that takes us into this weekend, so that's really going to help out those numbers. And compared to what we've seen, Matt, even though the drought monitor shows extreme drought in many locations, it's looking better than it was.
That's right. In fact, we don't see that exceptional drought across the area. That's been removed and replaced with extreme, and starting to see some improvement towards Lamar, northern Fayette, into Marion and Winston counties, and definitely seeing some major improvement with the drought monitor when you go into the southern half of the state where they've seen a little bit more in the way of rainfall. But here's a look at that comparison. Of course, as we began September, we were fine, but look at last week to now, and that exceptional drought, 5% of the state was in it, now at 0%.
Good, and we had 42% dealing with extreme drought last week, and now we're down to 33%, that brighter red color you see there on the screen.
That's right. And because of the recent rainfall, you know, we've had these fire alerts and the no burn bans. Well, the southern half of the state, there's no restrictions. That fire alert, it was downgraded from that no burn for parts of North Alabama, West Alabama. But we still have that no burn ban as you go into Jefferson, Shelby counties, all the way into areas like Cherokee and into Clay counties.
So maybe this weekend will help that out as well. We do have your First Alert weather app. You can monitor. It actually says past radar on the weather app, but it's current radar if you click that button. And then you've got model data. If you check the future scan on your radar site, it'll give you his projected rainfall that's headed to our area.
Yeah, so if you're checking the radar tomorrow going into Saturday, maybe you're traveling to Atlanta for the SEC championship game, you can see the radar, and then you can see what the radar could look like several hours later. And that could actually help you out as you're planning out your commute, maybe to North Georgia.
So hopefully we'll get the much needed rainfall, but not get the storms.
And we're on your side with how the drought is impacting Christmas trees. Alabama farmers say while you may not see a huge impact this season, the drought might impact your selections in a couple years. The trees you see now are fully matured, largely unaffected by the drought, which is good news. But the problem may be with those younger trees that were planted in January of this year. By the time they're harvested, they may not quite be as tall or as wide in the middle. It takes anywhere from 3 to 4 years for a Christmas tree to fully mature to the height of around 7 or 8 feet.
I don't think that you'll see a lot of impact on this year's crop. I think there was some loss to I guess, harvestable size trees, but it wasn't, it may have been 5 or 10% on average. I think the more important thing was there was some growers that lost a lot of first year trees that have been planted in the field back in January, February, that weren't hadn't established yet. And so I think we might see an impact of that in a couple of years.
That hard freeze from last December may also impact the tree. Jeremy Pickens says the state has around 30 growers and all operate the Choose and Cut farms. An updated order from the Forest Service took effect today. It means people visiting the Bankhead and Talladega National Forests cannot use fire or build campfires outside of developed recreation areas. They can only be in receptacles designed for fire. Fires are also restricted. Camp stoves and backpacking stoves are exempt from the restriction. The Forest Service banned burning alongside Governor Ivey's recent no burn order. But it says recent rain has improved conditions in some of those national forests. Lauren?
New today, the Environmental Protection Agency is proposing a rule that would require water systems to replace millions of lead pipes within 10 years. That includes all lines, regardless of lead levels in tap or other drinking water samples. It's a massive task estimated to cost at $45 billion. Lead exposure is linked to significant health and developmental problems, especially for children. While new lead pipes have been banned in the U.S. since the 80s, the EPA estimates there are still more than 9 million lead service lines in the U.S. And in Alaska, the community of Wrangell still grieving and cleaning up after last week's deadly landslide. Lex Yelverton reports.
We've lost 6 of our community members of a town of 2,096, or what was that? You know, that's proportionate. In Juneau of over 80 people, in Anchorage that's 800, and the difference being we know every one of those individuals.
Interim Borough Manager Mason Villarma and his team are taking action. They are now in Washington, D.C. to speak with the delegation and FEMA about federal aid.
We need to provide as much help as we can to the folks back home.
On Tuesday, Villarma met with Senator Lisa Murkowski.
She's provided several resources to address the disaster in our response, and as well as some other liabilities in terms of capital projects that affect our public safety.
He says that on Wednesday he'll be meeting with Senator Dan Sullivan, Representative Mary Peltola, the Department of Transportation, and FEMA.
We have a grassroots approach to this response and recovery. We believe that all community members' needs should be addressed.
Right now, the biggest concerns include restabilizing what he says is the highest hazard dam in the state, which is located in Wrangell, and working on the public safety building in the town.
We're confident that our leadership, Senator Sullivan, Senator Murkowski, the governor, and our local representation, Senator Stedman and Representative Ortez, will follow through on a commitment to our community to address their public safety concerns.
Bellarma believes the city and borough requires an investment into public safety, and it can't do it on its own.
If not, I believe that Wrangell is at the stake of potential absolute regression, and I think that the leadership knows that.
Bellarma maintains the Wrangell community will come back stronger, even though it may not seem that way now.
We have a vision for a community that if we address the public safety concerns that we have, we're going to be a catalyst in Southeast Alaska, and I really do believe that.
And in 30 seconds, we give you that 1-2 punch on the science behind fall street clouds. We'll be right back. Welcome back to First Alert Weather Extra. I'm meteorologist Lauren Linehan. You know, we are always hungry for your pictures on the First Alert Weather app. We are always checking it. My goodness, we've seen some beautiful photos lately of the fall foliage, but we also saw signs of a cool atmospheric phenomenon that occurred this past Monday. Take a look here. First of all, you see the sun in the distance, but we also see this strange, almost alien looking like cloud that showed up over the sky. This was sent in from Holly Kimberly, and it almost looks like there's a hole in the clouds. Well, what do you know? It's called a hole punch cloud, hence why I was punching the camera earlier. So its official name is called a fall streak. And this forms sometimes. They're not very common, but when they do form, believe it or not, they wouldn't happen without humans. Now, don't go getting into any conspiracy theories, but this actually has to do with when planes fly through clouds. So what you're seeing here are altocumulus or cirrocumulus clouds. These are mid to high level clouds in the atmosphere that are composed of what are called supercooled water droplets. That doesn't mean those water droplets are super cool. I mean, that's up to your own judgment, right? But they happen to exist as droplets, as water below freezing. So that's a phenomenon that can occur in the atmosphere. So it's not like they're ice yet. So you have temperatures below freezing in the cloud, but you still have water existing in its liquid state. But what happens is when a plane flies through a cloud, sometimes you can get a localized area of low pressure around the wings of the cloud. And what that causes is the air to cool rapidly and expand. When you have cooler air expanding, that can cause the temperature to drop even further. So those water droplets drop further below freezing, they turn into ice, and they become heavy enough that they fall from the cloud, and they can evaporate oftentimes before reaching the surface. In that evaporation, as those clouds or as those ice crystals begin to fall, that leaves a hole in the cloud. So next time you're flying in a plane, who knows, maybe you'll be the reason behind a hole punch cloud. Well, coming up next on First Alert Weather Extra, we check back in with Chief Meteorologist Wes Wyatt for a look at the rain and storm chances heading into the weekend. And I'll take you beyond the 7-day into, you guessed it, December. We'll be right back.
Well, the holiday season is here. You can see a Christmas parade happening there. Folks lined up there in downtown Montevallo. Looks like a perfect night, at least at this point, for the Christmas parade because we've got some rain coming in later on. But for right now, we are in fine shape here in Shelby County as far as any wet weather. Wind southeast and temperature at 50, but the dew point still down around 30 degrees. And what happens, you start to get that rain. It's going to bring the temperature down. That dew point will start to rise and will probably level off in the 40s as the atmosphere becomes quite saturated, but the battle still underway right now as that moisture tries to work in. Notice the arrows, the winds again out of the southeast across the area. That's going to draw in that moisture off the Gulf of Mexico, and it looks as though later on tonight the showers will get in here around 11 midnight tonight, especially across West Alabama. But at this point, it's still a lot of this is still struggling to make it in here. But we're going to talk more about the weather calendar coming up in a few moments. I did want to expand the view and just show you some of the rain that was further off to the west, but you can see on the next 24 hours overnight tonight, the latest data, some of the new model data is showing by 1 a.m. some of those showers building in, but look at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. You can see in there early morning hours, probably some embedded thunderstorms. It wouldn't shock me if we had 1 or 2 stronger thunderstorms with some intense lightning, some locally heavy rainfall as that moves on through. But the data continuing to show a nice little break during the day, into the afternoon. But do check in for updates tomorrow. I know we have more parades, a lot going on tomorrow night. There's a chance that the rain might come in a little bit sooner tomorrow night, but at this point it's showing 10 to 11 o'clock again, and another overnight with heavy rain and rumbles there in an early Saturday. But actually Saturday, it's going to stick around a bit longer. It looks like well into the morning hours, some leftover showers, overcast, kind of rainy and drizzly there going into the afternoon. We'll probably have some more showers again, I'm thinking Saturday night and then early on Sunday. But then the system finally moves out of here by Sunday afternoon. We'll catch at least some breaks this weekend. As far as any risk for tornadoes with this, I know we talked about storms. I'm not worried about tornadoes in our area as far as severe weather risk. Storm Prediction Center has a low-end marginal risk. But you know, when you're talking about a marginal risk, the main thing is just to look at where those tornado ingredients are, and you can see that that's mainly down in far south Alabama that we'll need to watch out for. But if you are traveling for the weekend, just keep that in mind. Areas to the south, that late tomorrow and into Saturday, a brief tornado threat is certainly going to be there. Highs in the 60s for Saturday. Again, that's south of us. A lot of rain. That's going to be a good thing as we go through the weekend. And then Monday through the middle of next week, you can see that we got that dry weather that's going to be returning a little bit cooler. It looks like as we get into next Wednesday, we'll see those temperatures tumbling, go from 60s for highs down into the 50s, so a little bit cooler there by the middle of the week. But let's go back to that first alert weather calendar. We'll check in with meteorologist Lauren Linehan. And Lauren, watching way out there, I know we've got Christmas parades, a lot, tree lightings, everything's going on, and thankfully at least for Montevallo, weather cooperating tonight.
Yeah, the weather is cooperating tonight, but that rain will be here before we know it. So as we look beyond this 7-day, you'll see what we have highlighted here is really tomorrow through Sunday. And Sunday, I think most of us are going to be good unless you live areas south and east of I-2059, maybe somewhere like Talladega County over towards Clay County, Chambers County, Randolph County. That's where you could maybe see a better chance of some showers. But then it looks pretty quiet for most of next week. The big question mark is going into next weekend. Could we see another rainmaker? Right now, the latest data is showcasing maybe next Monday, which would be good because I heard a certain meteorologist in the studio right now maybe trying to get hitched next weekend. So we want to make sure for our girl Tania Michelle that she has some dry weather. But hey, rain is good luck for meteorologists, right? Or just you regular people too who aren't meteorologists. So we'll see, but we'll try to push the rain to Monday, Tania. In the meantime, let's look at that temperature outlook. 60-day temperature outlook does show here in north and central Alabama, there is going to be the possibility of some above average temperatures. Now, when I'm looking at the data right here, it kind of almost shows near average temperatures, nothing too impressive. I'm not looking at a heat wave in the forecast as far as those high temperatures, but notice Wes was mentioning as we get into the middle of next week, we could see a little bit of a cool down. So maybe those low temperatures getting into the 30s, briefly warming up next weekend before we see another cool down going into the following week of December. So this is looking at December 6th through 15th. Now, what about precipitation? Because obviously September, October, November have been very dry months for us. It does look like, as we were just showing you, that first alert weather calendar into next week shows us very dry until maybe next weekend. But we want to push that out of here, right? So let's look beyond the 7-day. Here's the future cast. Next Friday at 6 a.m. showing some clouds around. It could be fairly cloudy with some disturbances moving through, but I'm not seeing right now much in the way of rain that Friday or Saturday. I think we're going to see a situation where maybe that Sunday or that Monday, December 11th, the possibility of a rainmaker developing an area of low pressure that could bring some rain at some point. And you'll also notice there's a dip in the jet stream. So I think because we'll have a trough of low pressure, that could also bring a cool down into that week of December. Here we are Tuesday, December 12th. So we'll keep an eye on things. And of course, we're really going to be focused beyond the 7-day for Tania's wedding, but we'll have a final look at your forecast right after the break.
Okay, well, earlier in the show, Lauren, you went ahead and you gave us a little teaser, but let's go ahead and let's get the big news. You have a wedding coming up, right?
Yes. December 10th. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
But yes, it's coming fast. Tomorrow's December 1st.
Oh,
9 days away.
Well, we're so excited for you. And you were just mentioning, I was showing the camera at Montevallo. They're having a nice Christmas parade, and and your fiance is actually in the
He's
parade
in the
tonight.
parade tonight. And the rain held off. Listen, it's great.
Good.
See how that works?
Right.
All coming together.
So maybe it'll hold off for the wedding.
It
too.
will.
'Cause
We're
I'll
speaking that into
admit,
existence.
The past few days I've been a little concerned. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to tell Tania yet. We're just going to wait and see what happens. Because beyond the 7-day, we always say things can and will change. We're just kind of looking at trends.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
you've got to check the weather daily. It evolves.
Daily.
A forecast
All the
always-
time.
Yep.
Yes.
We gather more data, and you will be in Tuscaloosa Monday night.
Yes.
In the Storm Tracker
With
Christmas parade.
Fred.
With Fred.
I mean, I love riding around with you guys, but Fred as the passenger princess is going to be pretty fun. So I'll be driving him
okay,
around.
Lauren.
We got some rain coming back. We'll be updating you on the 7-day forecast. Join us.